Night settles quietly over the narrow streets of lower Manhattan. Gas lamps flicker against brick walls stained by time, rain, and secrets. Horse-drawn wagons roll slowly across uneven cobblestones, their wheels whispering through puddles left behind by an evening storm. Inside dim tenement windows, immigrant families speak softly in Italian, dialects carried across the Atlantic from Sicily and Naples. This is a city of opportunity, but also a city of shadows. And in those shadows a name begins to move. Joseph Masseria. Long before newspapers whispered his name in fear, before rivals spoke it with caution, before power gathered around him like a crown, he was simply another immigrant chasing survival in America. He arrived with little more than tradition, ambition, and a hardened understanding of how power truly worked in the old world. He understood something many did not, that strength alone was never enough. Control, loyalty, and fear were the true currencies of influence. The streets of early 20th century New York were not ruled by law. They were ruled by proximity, who you knew, who protected you, and who could make problems disappear before dawn. The Italian underworld was fractured, divided into old loyalties brought from Europe, and new rivalries born in American soil. Every alley had a story. Every back room held a negotiation. Every silence meant danger. Joseph Masseria learned early that survival required patience. He did not rise by noise or reckless violence. He watched. He listened. He memorized faces and remembered favors. While others fought openly for territory, he positioned himself where information flowed freely. Social clubs, gambling rooms, cafes thick with cigarette smoke. Men talked when they believed no one important was listening. Masseria listened carefully. His physical presence alone commanded attention. Heavy-set, confident, always immaculately dressed, he carried himself like a man who already belonged at the table of power. Even when he held no title, his posture suggested authority. His eyes revealed calculation, not impulse. People sensed it instinctively. In these years, the Italian criminal networks were dominated by traditions imported from Sicily, codes of silence, family loyalty, and rigid hierarchy. But America was changing those rules. Younger men wanted faster profits, broader alliances, and modern systems. The old ways clashed with the new, and Masseria stood at the intersection of both worlds. He understood tradition, but he also understood America. Prohibition loomed on the horizon, and with it, opportunity on a scale never seen before. Liquor would soon become illegal, and illegal liquor would become gold. While others argued over honor and regional loyalty, Masseria quietly positioned himself to control distribution, protection, and enforcement. He aligned himself with men who valued profit over pride. Money created loyalty faster than blood. As gambling dens multiplied and bootlegging routes expanded, Masseria's influence grew outward like a spreading shadow. He did not claim leadership publicly. Instead, he allowed others to speak his name in rooms where decisions were made. When conflicts arose, his opinion carried weight. When disputes turned violent, his approval determined who lived and who vanished. Fear followed naturally. Those who opposed him often found themselves isolated. Allies drifted away. Business opportunities dried up. Protection disappeared. Violence was rare but decisive. When it came, it sent a message that echoed far beyond the act itself. By the late 1910s, Joseph Masseria was no longer merely surviving, he was shaping the environment around him. Italian communities began to feel his presence, even if they didn't recognize it. Neighborhood businesses paid protection, not to avoid violence, but to ensure peace. Gambling operations ran smoothly under his indirect oversight. Rivals learned that challenging him brought consequences that extended beyond the streets and into families, finances, and futures. Yet Masseria never appeared rushed. He believed power was strongest when it felt inevitable. Inside private dining rooms, over long meals heavy with wine and tradition, he spoke calmly about unity, respect, and stability. He presented himself as a protector of old values while quietly building a modern criminal empire. This dual identity made him dangerous, trusted by traditionalists, respected by innovators. But ambition has a cost. As his influence grew, so did resentment. Younger gangsters, impatient and hungry, watched carefully. They respected his authority, but they questioned his methods. They wondered if the old guard truly understood the future of organized crime in America. Masseria sensed this tension. He responded not with fear, but with tighter control. Loyalty became non-negotiable. Neutrality was no longer acceptable. You were either with him or against him. The city itself seemed to respond to his rise. Police corruption deepened. Political connections blurred the line between crime and governance. Judges, officers, and officials learned to look the other way when his operations moved through their jurisdictions. By the early 1920s, his name carried weight far beyond New York's Italian neighborhoods. He had become a central figure in the invisible structure that governed crime across the city, not officially crowned, but effectively unchallenged. This was not yet the height of his power. This was only the beginning. Joseph Masseria had mastered patience, fear, and influence. He believed himself untouchable, a king without a throne, ruling through respect and intimidation rather than ceremony. But power attracts challengers, and every empire built in shadow eventually invites light. As night deepens and the city sleeps, plans are made behind closed doors. Alliances shift. Ambition sharpens. The stage is quietly set for conflicts that will reshape the mafia forever. For now, the shadow remains calm. The rise is complete. The fall has not yet begun. The city breathes differently when the law changes overnight. Doors that once closed early now stay open until dawn. Basements hum with quiet activity, and trucks move through darkened streets with their lights low and their cargo hidden beneath canvas and lies. When alcohol becomes forbidden, desire does not disappear, it sharpens. And in that sharpening, power finds its voice. Joseph Masseria understands this instinctively. He does not celebrate the new era loudly. He does not rush into the streets waving control like a flag. Instead, he allows others to stumble first, to make noise, to draw attention. He watches patterns form: who moves liquor, who protects routes, who talks too much, who drinks too much. He sees who treats this moment as a gamble, and who treats it as destiny. In quiet rooms above, cafes, and behind butcher shops, agreements are made without ink or witnesses. A nod replaces a signature. A shared meal replaces a contract. Masseria's role in these rooms is subtle but absolute. He speaks last, and when he does, no one interrupts. The city's thirst creates networks faster than any single man can control. That is why Masseria does not attempt to dominate everything at once. He builds a framework instead. He places trusted figures at strategic points: distribution, protection, enforcement, each believing they operate independently, each unaware of how tightly they are connected. Money flows upward. Violence flows downward. This balance keeps the system quiet. When disputes arise, they are resolved before gunfire becomes necessary. A delivery goes missing, and the problem is solved with compensation. A bar owner complains, and suddenly his business receives better protection than before. People learn that cooperation brings comfort, while resistance brings exhaustion. Masseria's strength lies not in cruelty, but in inevitability. Police raids come and go, rarely touching the core of his operations. Officers are warned in advance. Evidence disappears. Witnesses forget. Some officials benefit directly. Others simply learn that peace in their district is worth more than confrontation. But peace has a cost. As profits increase, so does competition. New players emerge ambitious, reckless, eager to claim territory before someone else does. They test boundaries. They skim profits. They whisper about independence. Masseria responds with silence. He does not call meetings. He does not issue threats. He simply withdraws protection. Routes become unsafe. Deliveries are delayed. Arrests begin to happen not to him, but to those who stray. Fear spreads faster than any message he could send. Eventually, the whispers stop. Inside the Italian criminal world, tradition clashes with momentum. Old loyalties strain under new money. Some believe leadership should remain rooted in heritage and respect. Others see opportunity in expansion, alliances, and speed. Masseria positions himself as the guardian of order, the figure who prevents chaos from consuming everyone. He insists on structure. He insists on obedience. And he insists on loyalty, not just to himself, but to the system he has built. Those closest to him know better than to mistake calm for weakness. His generosity is measured. His patience is strategic. He remembers everything. A favor unpaid, a slight ignored, a promise delayed, all are stored quietly, to be addressed when timing favors him. His presence becomes symbolic. He does not need to appear often. His name alone stabilizes disputes. When arguments escalate, one question ends them. What would Masseria say? That question carries weight. Yet power always invites scrutiny. Younger men watch him closely, studying his methods, measuring his age, wondering how long stability can last. They admire his success but resent his control. They believe the future belongs to those willing to move faster, think bigger, break tradition. Masseria sees this shift. He does not fear it. He adapts. He allows younger operators to rise, but never too high, never without oversight. He gives them responsibility without autonomy, profit without independence. This keeps ambition contained while appearing progressive. To the outside world, the underworld seems fragmented, chaotic, unpredictable. In reality, it is tightly managed. Nights grow longer, profits grow heavier. Loyalty becomes more expensive, and somewhere beneath the surface, pressure builds, alliances harden. Personalities clash, pride sharpens into rivalry. Masseria remains at the center, immovable. He believes control is not about domination, it is about balance, about knowing when to apply force and when to let events unfold, about allowing others to feel powerful while ensuring they never forget who truly holds authority. But balance is fragile. A single miscalculation can fracture everything. As the city continues to drink in secret and sin in silence, unseen tensions tighten like a wire pulled too far. Men begin to believe they deserve more. They begin to imagine a future without restraint, without oversight, without Masseria. He senses it. And for the first time, the silence around him feels different, not peaceful, but expectant. Storms do not announce themselves. They arrive quietly. Power changes the air around a man. It alters how people speak, how they sit, how long silence is allowed to stretch before someone fills it with words. Around Joseph Masseria, silence is respected. It is understood as part of the conversation, not an absence of it. By now, his authority is no longer questioned openly. It is accepted as a condition of life, like weather or gravity. Men build their plans around it. Businesses rise and fall beneath it. Decisions are made with his reaction already calculated, and yet power does not sit lightly. Masseria carries it with confidence, but also with awareness. He knows that every position at the top is temporary, even when it feels permanent. The higher a man rises, the more carefully he must watch those below him. Ambition, after all, does not disappear when it is suppressed, it waits. In private rooms filled with cigar smoke and low laughter, Masseria observes faces more than words. He studies who speaks too eagerly, who avoids eye contact, who listens too closely. Loyalty is not declared, it is revealed in small, unconscious moments. A delayed response, a forced smile, a question asked one time too many. He adjusts accordingly. Some men are brought closer, rewarded with trust and responsibility. Others are slowly distanced, their influence reduced without confrontation. They do not realize it at first. They believe the shift is temporary, circumstantial. By the time they understand, it is too late. This is how Masseria maintains control without chaos, without spectacle. But control demands constant attention. Every new opportunity creates new risks. Every expansion opens space for betrayal. The system grows heavier, more complex, harder to balance. The streets reflect this tension. Bootlegging routes stretch farther. Gambling operations grow larger. Protection becomes an industry of its own. Money moves faster than loyalty can keep up. Men who were once content with a steady share begin to crave recognition, titles, independence. Some begin to see Masseria not as a protector, but as an obstacle. They speak cautiously, always behind closed doors, always in half sentences. They tell themselves they are only asking questions, not plotting. They convince themselves that change would benefit everyone. Masseria hears these whispers long before they reach volume. He responds by tightening the structure not through violence, but through discipline. Meetings become formal. Rules are clarified. Expectations are reinforced. He reminds everyone that stability is the reason profits exist at all. And for a time it works. Fear and respect realign. The system steadies. Yet something fundamental has shifted. The world around him is changing, faster than tradition can adapt. New ideas circulate. Younger men see crime not as a secret society, but as a business. They talk about efficiency, expansion, alliances beyond heritage. Masseria understands business, but he does not trust ambition without roots. To him, loyalty is sacred because it is fragile. Without it, everything collapses. This belief isolates him. Those closest to him are loyal, but fewer in number. The circle tightens. Information becomes filtered. Decisions rely on fewer perspectives. The crown grows heavier, even as it grows more secure. And then there is pride, not the loud kind, but the quiet certainty that comes from years of dominance. Masseria has survived rivals, law enforcement, internal conflict. He has watched others fall while he remains. This endurance convinces him that his instincts are infallible. It is a dangerous conviction. He believes challenges can always be managed the same way they always have, through patience, control, and selective force. He believes time is on his side. But time belongs to no one. As profits soar, so does scrutiny. Law enforcement adapts. Political pressure increases. The underworld becomes more visible, more interconnected, harder to keep quiet. Mistakes ripple outward faster than before. Masseria works harder to contain them. He intervenes personally more often. He resolves disputes himself. He reminds others of the consequences of disorder. His presence remains powerful, but it also reveals strain. A system that once ran smoothly now requires constant correction. Those watching notice. They begin to think not about rebellion, but about succession. About what comes next. About who would lead if the balance were reset. These thoughts are dangerous, not because they are acted upon, but because they exist. Masseria senses the shift in atmosphere. The silence around him feels different now, less reverent, more calculating. He knows that absolute control invites absolute resistance. Yet he refuses to loosen his grip. To do so would invite chaos, and chaos is unforgivable. So he doubles down. He reinforces old loyalties. He emphasizes tradition. He positions himself as the last line between order and collapse. To many, this is reassuring. To others, it feels suffocating. The city does not sleep easily anymore. Every deal carries tension. Every meeting carries subtext. Every alliance feels provisional. The balance holds, but barely. Masseria remains convinced that he can outlast any challenge. That authority once earned cannot be taken, only surrendered. He has no intention of surrendering anything. But power is not only about strength. It is about timing. And timing is beginning to turn. The city wears confidence well. From the outside, everything appears settled. Businesses run smoothly, money flows steadily, and disputes resolve themselves with minimal noise. But beneath that calm surface, movement never stops. Power shifts quietly, like underground water changing direction long before anything cracks above ground. Joseph Masseria feels these movements even when they remain invisible to others. He spends more time alone now, not out of isolation, but calculation. Silence offers clarity. In silence, patterns emerge. He understands that strength is no longer proven by conquest, but by control over change. And change is everywhere. New money brings new habits. Flashier suits, louder laughter, faster decisions. Men who once showed patience now demand speed. They want results immediately, profits instantly, authority now, not later. They speak of expansion, beyond familiar neighborhoods, beyond old agreements, beyond traditions that once kept everything contained. Masseria listens. He does not reject these ideas outright. He absorbs them, weighs them, tests them through others. He allows limited expansion, but always under supervision. Controlled growth, measured risk. Anything else invites collapse. Still, restraint frustrates the ambitious. They interpret caution as weakness, experience as stagnation. They forget that survival itself is a skill earned through loss. They see only the present, not the wreckage buried beneath it. Masseria remembers everything. He remembers when violence was loud and uncontrolled, when alliances shifted daily, when trust was a liability. He built stability from that chaos, and he refuses to let impatience destroy it. Yet the more he enforces order, the more resistance grows. Not openly, not recklessly. Resistance takes subtler forms now: delayed obedience, selective loyalty, quiet alliances formed without permission. Men begin to hedge their bets. They prepare for futures that do not include him. This is the cost of longevity. Masseria understands that power eventually becomes a symbol rather than a force. Symbols inspire respect, but they also invite challenge. To some, removing the symbol feels like progress. He addresses this by reinforcing presence. He attends more meetings, makes more appearances, speaks directly instead of through intermediaries. His voice remains calm, measured, authoritative, but those who listen closely hear something else beneath it, a reminder, a warning. He speaks of unity, of tradition, of consequences. Some nod sincerely. Others nod strategically. Trust becomes harder to measure. Even within his closest circle, tension exists. Advisors disagree quietly. Suggestions carry hidden motives. Information arrives filtered, shaped by fear or ambition. Masseria must decide not only what is true, but why it is being told. This is the burden of command. He compensates by tightening discipline. Rules are enforced uniformly. Exceptions disappear. Loyalty is rewarded, but only after it is proven repeatedly. Mistakes are addressed swiftly, not with spectacle, but with permanence. People notice. They adjust. Fear stabilizes the system again, but it is no longer the same fear as before. It is colder, less respectful, more transactional. Masseria does not enjoy this shift, but he accepts. He believes order must be maintained regardless of sentiment. That leadership is not about comfort, but necessity. He tells himself that resentment is temporary, that results will silence doubt. But doubt does not need volume to survive. It only needs time. As pressure builds, the underworld becomes more interconnected than ever. Decisions in one area ripple outward. A conflict avoided here creates tension elsewhere. Balance requires constant correction. Masseria works relentlessly to maintain it. He mediates disputes personally. He restructures operations quietly. He removes unreliable figures without explanation. His authority remains intact, but the effort required to maintain it increases, and effort reveals vulnerability. Those watching closely begin to sense it, not weakness, but weight. They see a leader carrying too much alone, a system too dependent on a single figure. They begin to imagine alternatives. Masseria senses this shift more clearly now. He understands that power rarely ends with force, it ends with consensus. When enough people believe change is inevitable, it becomes so. He refuses to accept inevitability. He doubles down on tradition, believing it anchors loyalty. He emphasizes hierarchy, believing it ensures order. He reminds others of what chaos looks like, of what happens when ambition outruns discipline. For some, this resonates. For others, it confirms their doubts. The city continues to move, unaware of the tension threading through its nights. Bars open quietly. Deals close silently. Money exchanges hands without emotion. Everything functions, but beneath it all something tightens. Masseria remains at the center of it, composed, deliberate, resolute. He believes that control, once earned, can be held indefinitely with enough discipline. He does not yet realize that discipline alone cannot stop change. Change does not attack. It waits. Power rarely announces its movements. It shifts furniture before it moves walls. It rearranges loyalties before it redraws borders. To those inside the system, the changes feel gradual, almost natural, until one day they realize the room is no longer the same. Joseph Masseria senses the rearrangement long before it becomes visible. He notices it in the way meetings end faster than they used to, in the way decisions are accepted without discussion, not out of agreement but avoidance. He hears it in the pauses between words, in the careful phrasing of suggestions offered as questions. These are not signs of obedience. They are signs of calculation. The city continues to function smoothly, but the emotional texture beneath it has changed. Relationships feel thinner. Loyalty feels conditional. Respect still exists, but it is no longer rooted in belief, it is rooted in convenience. Masseria understands this difference intimately. He knows that when respect turns practical, power becomes fragile, not weak but vulnerable to timing. He adjusts by strengthening oversight, but not aggressively. Aggression invites resistance. Instead, he reorganizes quietly, placing emphasis on reliability rather than ambition. Men who once moved freely now find their authority narrowed. They are still respected, still profitable, but no longer central. New intermediaries appear loyal, cautious, unremarkable. They deliver messages accurately and without interpretation. They do not innovate. They execute. This frustrates those who crave recognition. They do not rebel, not yet. They adapt outwardly while building inward alliances. Conversations extend longer after meetings end. Dinners happen without invitation. Trust is tested in small ways, shared complaints, subtle jokes, harmless hypotheticals. Masseria hears fragments of this movement. But fragments alone do not justify action. He knows better than to strike without clarity. Instead, he focuses on reinforcing what he controls completely: money flow, protection, enforcement. He ensures that every profitable route depends on permission, that every security arrangement traces back to his approval. Dependency becomes the silent chain that holds the system together. It works, for a time. But dependency breeds resentment when ambition outgrows patience. Some begin to feel trapped rather than protected. They measure their success not by stability but by comparison. They believe they contribute more than they receive. This belief spreads quietly. Masseria responds by increasing accountability. He asks for reports. He requests explanations. He expects consistency. His expectations are not unreasonable, but they are relentless. Pressure builds. Those under it feel watched, evaluated, constrained. They begin to associate his presence not with safety but with limitation. This is not how it began, and the contrast sharpens dissatisfaction. Masseria remains composed, but he feels the strain. Leadership has become maintenance rather than expansion. Every day is spent preventing erosion rather than building strength. He tells himself this is the natural cycle of power, that consolidation always follows growth. Yet something about this cycle feels different. The alliances forming beneath the surface are not chaotic. They are deliberate. They do not seek immediate overthrow. They seek alignment, consensus. They speak the language of progress and efficiency, not rebellion. This concerns him more than open hostility ever could. Open enemies reveal themselves. Quiet alternatives gather momentum. Masseria increases his presence again, not to intimidate but to remind. He attends social functions. He shares meals. He listens. He speaks of continuity and responsibility. He presents himself as the steady hand in uncertain times. Some respond positively. Others nod politely. He notices who avoids prolonged conversation, who leaves early, who no longer seeks his counsel voluntarily. These observations accumulate like weight. Still, he does not act. He believes patience will reveal intentions. He believes that time favors experience. He believes that those experimenting with alignment will expose themselves through error. But the movement beneath him is cautious. It avoids mistakes. It avoids visibility. It waits. The city itself mirrors this tension. Nights feel heavier. Conversations quieter, deals more deliberate. Everyone senses that something is approaching, even if no one names it. Masseria feels it most clearly in moments of solitude. He reflects on the path that brought him here, on the order he imposed, the chaos he prevented, the stability he created. He believes deeply that without his structure, everything would fracture, that ambition without discipline leads only to destruction. He may be right. But belief alone does not secure power. Power survives through relevance. And relevance requires adaptation. Masseria considers change, but carefully. Too much change signals weakness. Too little invites stagnation. He chooses measured adjustments, small concessions, limited autonomy, controlled innovation. He hopes this will relieve pressure without sacrificing authority. It helps briefly, but beneath the surface, the rearrangement continues. The quiet confidence he once inspired has shifted into quiet assessment. People calculate outcomes instead of trusting direction. They prepare for contingencies they do not discuss. Masseria remains central, but no longer singular. This realization does not frighten him. It angers him, not with rage, but with resolve. He believes leadership is not something negotiated, it is earned and defended. He believes that allowing alternatives to solidify is an abdication of responsibility. He begins to prepare not for war, but for correction. The kind that restores clarity. The kind that reminds everyone where order originates. But timing matters, and timing is narrowing. The first sign is not violence. It is hesitation. A decision that once would have been accepted immediately now lingers in the air. Men glance at one another before nodding. Questions are asked that sound respectful but feel unnecessary. Authority still exists, but it is being weighed rather than trusted. Joseph Masseria notices this shift with precision. He understands that power is not challenged all at once. It is tested in small moments, in minor delays, in polite resistance. Those tests are designed to measure response. Silence invites more testing. Overreaction invites unity against the response, so he chooses balance. He begins by asserting clarity. Instructions are delivered plainly, without justification or explanation. Expectations are restated, not debated. He reminds those around him quietly, firmly, that order is not a suggestion. For some, this restores certainty. They relax into structure, grateful that someone still carries the burden of decision. For others, it confirms what they already believe, that control has become inflexible, that leadership has stopped listening. This divide deepens quietly. Masseria does not address it directly. Instead, he focuses on visibility. He places himself where authority must be acknowledged, at negotiation, at conflict resolutions, at moments where ambiguity threatens profit. His presence stabilizes outcomes, but it also exposes fault lines. He sees who avoids eye contact. He sees who defers eagerly. He sees who agrees too quickly. Each reaction tells a story. This system continues to function, but effort increases. What once flowed naturally now requires reinforcement. Influence must be applied more frequently. Corrections become routine rather than rare. This frustrates Masseria, not because he doubts his ability to maintain control, but because he recognizes inefficiency. Power should simplify, not complicate. When leadership becomes constant intervention, something beneath it is failing. He looks inward first. He examines his methods, his assumptions, his trust. He considers whether restraint has been mistaken for weakness, whether patience has allowed ambition too much space. Weighs every possibility carefully. Then he looks outward. He notices patterns, certain figures communicating more frequently, certain decisions aligning. Without consultation, certain disagreements resolved elsewhere before reaching him. These are not coincidences, they are signals. Authority is being routed around. This is unacceptable. Masseria understands that allowing parallel structures to form is the beginning of displacement. He decides it is time to remind everyone that there is only one center. But reminders must be precise. He selects moments carefully, small, controlled demonstrations of consequence. A deal denied without explanation. Protection withdrawn temporarily. An intermediary replaced. Nothing dramatic. Nothing violent. Just enough disruption to reassert dependence. The effect is immediate. Some retreat. Others become cautious. Conversations quiet. Momentum slows. The system realigns slightly, but the underlying tension remains. Those who feel constrained interpret these actions not as correction, but as confirmation of their concerns. They see authority tightening instead of adapting. They grow more careful, more united, more discreet. Masseria senses this reaction and feels irritation sharpen into resolve. He believes leadership requires firmness in moments of uncertainty. That yielding now would invite erosion later. He tells himself that resistance always peaks before it collapses. But resistance here is not loud. It is disciplined. That discipline unsettles him. The city continues its routines, deliveries, payments, negotiations, but everything feels provisional. Every agreement feels like it includes an unspoken condition. Trust is no longer assumed. It is negotiated silently. Masseria carries this weight alone. Those closest to him offer reassurance, but reassurance is not insight. He needs clarity, not comfort. He needs to know whether this movement beneath him is temporary pressure or structural change. He tests again. He introduces a new directive, minor, but symbolic. Compliance will signal acceptance. Delay will signal defiance. Responses arrive unevenly. Some comply immediately. Others comply slowly. A few comply imperfectly. Masseria interprets each response carefully. He understands now that authority is no longer universally internalized. It is being obeyed strategically. This realization does not frighten him, it clarifies his position. If authority must be enforced, then enforcement becomes part of leadership again. He does not announce this shift. He prepares for it quietly. He strengthens his inner circle. He consolidates communication. He limits access. He reduces ambiguity. These actions stabilize his position, but they also draw a line. Those on one side feel secure. Those on the other feel constrained. The divide becomes clearer. even if it remains unspoken. Masseria believes this clarity is necessary, that systems cannot function indefinitely under ambiguity. That pressure, when applied correctly, forces resolution. He may be right, but pressure also accelerates movement. Those who feel the line being drawn begin to choose sides internally. They weigh loyalty against opportunity, tradition against evolution. They do not rush their decision. They wait for the moment when choice becomes unavoidable. Masseria senses that such a moment is approaching. He remains composed, controlled, deliberate. He believes that when the moment arrives, authority will prevail as it always has. That experience will outweigh ambition. That order will overcome experimentation. Yet, even as he believes this, he feels the narrowing of time. The calm he once created now feels taut, like a surface stretched too tight. One decisive action by anyone could break it. Masseria prepares for that possibility, not with fear, with certainty. Every system reaches a point where momentum replaces intention. Decisions once guided carefully begin to move on their own, carried by forces set in motion long ago. Joseph Masseria feels this shift not as panic, but as inevitability. The air around him has changed. Conversations no longer wander, they circle. Agreements no longer rest, they lean. Choice is approaching. He recognizes it in the smallest details. Meetings begin exactly on time, not out of respect, but out of discipline. Smiles appear and disappear quickly. Laughter feels rehearsed. Men listen intently, not to understand, but to measure consequences. These are not signs of chaos. They are signs of preparation. Masseria understands preparation well. He has spent his life preparing, anticipating outcomes, arranging leverage, shaping environments so that options narrow naturally. Now he senses others doing the same, not recklessly, not emotionally, carefully. That care unsettles him more than anger ever could. He does not confront it directly. Confrontation would force hands too early, collapse possibilities that still hold value. Instead, he slows everything down. He delays approvals. He revisits arrangements. He introduces procedural steps where instinct once sufficed. This frustrates many. Speed has become the language of ambition, and restraint feels like obstruction. Some interpret his caution as fear. Others see it as stubbornness. Few recognize it for what it is, an attempt to reclaim tempo. Tempo is power. When you control the pace, you control outcomes. Masseria believes this deeply. He adjusts the rhythm of operations until impatience reveals itself. Those who push too hard expose themselves. Those who wait reveal loyalty. But patience has limits. The environment has changed. Opportunities appear and disappear quickly. Those who hesitate lose ground. This reality pressures everyone beneath him, regardless of loyalty. They feel caught between respect and relevance. Masseria senses the discomfort and weighs his response. He could loosen control, grant autonomy, trust the structure to hold. Or he could tighten further, force alignment through discipline, remind everyone that order precedes opportunity. He chooses neither completely. Instead, he creates a test, not announced, not formal. A situation that requires coordination, restraint, and trust. A scenario where cooperation benefits all, but individual ambition risks exposure. He watches carefully as events unfold. Responses vary. Some act cautiously, seeking guidance. Others act independently, confident in their judgment. A few attempt to balance both, hedging their decisions. Masseria studies outcomes rather than intentions. He notes who prioritizes stability over speed, who values consensus over advantage, who moves without consultation. Patterns emerge. These patterns clarify something he has resisted, acknowledging that authority is no longer unified. That leadership is being evaluated not by legacy, but by adaptability. That experience, while respected, is no longer sufficient on its own. This realization does not humble him, it hardens him. He believes leadership should not be subject to trend or impatience, that those who seek speed without structure will eventually create chaos, that his role is not to please, but to prevent collapse. He decides that clarity must replace ambiguity, not through speeches or displays, but through action. He begins consolidating power decisively. Responsibilities are reassigned. Oversight increases. Communication channels narrow. He positions trusted figures where uncertainty threatens growth. The message is unmistakable. Authority is not being negotiated. Some accept this with relief. They welcome the certainty. Others feel the walls closing in. They interpret consolidation as exclusion. They see their future shrinking rather than expanding. Those who feel constrained do not protest. They prepare. Quietly. Masseria feels this preparation like pressure behind his eyes. He knows that when preparation meets consolidation, collision is inevitable. He believes that when it happens, his position will hold. That experience, structure, and control will outweigh ambition. But belief does not eliminate risk. The city itself feels different now. Nights are quieter, but heavier. Movement is deliberate. Information travels carefully. Trust is rationed. Everyone senses that alignment is forming, even if they do not yet know where it leads. Masseria spends more time alone again, not retreating but thinking. He considers whether leadership must evolve to survive, whether adaptation requires surrender of control or redefinition of it. He weighs these questions without sentiment. He concludes that evolution without authority is collapse. He chooses to stand firm. This choice brings calm to his actions, but it also commits him to consequence. Once chosen, direction replaces doubt. He moves with purpose now, even if that purpose narrows possibilities. Those watching feel it. They sense that neutrality is no longer sustainable, that winning carries risk equal to action, that alignment will soon be demanded, not suggested. Some feel loyalty strengthen under this pressure. Others feel resolve harden. The system tightens around Masseria like armor, protective, restrictive, heavy. He wears it confidently, believing that leadership requires endurance. That pressure is proof of importance. He does not yet see that pressure also accelerates fracture. The moment of choice is no longer approaching. It is here. And once choices are made, they cannot be unmade. In rooms where voices used to overlap, pauses now linger. Men choose their words carefully, not to persuade, but to avoid revealing alignment. The absence of noise carries meaning. It says that decisions are already forming elsewhere, beyond the reach of conversation. Joseph Masseria understands this kind of silence. He has lived within it long enough to recognize its weight. Silence is no longer neutral. It is deliberate. It conceals intention, shelters calculation, and sharpens resolve. When silence spreads, it means lines are being drawn without announcement. He responds by simplifying. Complex systems fracture under stress. Simplicity, however, reveals structure. Masseria reduces variables, fewer intermediaries, fewer discretionary decisions, fewer informal arrangements. What remains is authority, clear and unmistakable. This clarity steadies some. They appreciate boundaries. They operate best when expectations are fixed and outcomes predictable. For them, leadership still offers security. For others, clarity feels like confinement. They feel the narrowing of paths. They sense that choices are being limited, futures constrained. They interpret structure not as protection, but as obstruction. These interpretations harden into positions, not spoken aloud, understood. Masseria notices how gatherings shift. People cluster differently. Conversations form tighter circles. Invitations become selective. He is still central, but no longer universal. Influence no longer flows outward naturally, it must be directed. This does not diminish his authority. It changes its texture. Authority now rests on enforcement rather than consensus, on discipline rather than shared belief. Masseria accepts this transition without regret. He believes leadership evolves through phases, and this is simply another phase. But phases end, and endings invite challenge. He reinforces loyalty where it exists genuinely. He invests in those who demonstrate patience, restraint, and respect for hierarchy. He elevates reliability over brilliance. This strengthens his base, but it also clarifies opposition. Those excluded do not react emotionally. They react strategically. They mirror his discipline. They simplify their own structures. They reduce visibility. They communicate efficiently. They prepare contingencies. Masseria senses this parallel movement and tightens his focus. He watches for mistakes. Mistakes do not come. The opposition, if it can even be called that, yet is cautious, methodical, disciplined. It avoids provocation. It avoids exposure. It waits for alignment to solidify. This patience concerns him more than aggression ever could. Aggression reveals intent. Patience conceals it. The city feels like it is holding its breath. Operations continue, but with restraint. Expansion slows. Innovation pauses. Everyone seems to be waiting for something to happen, no one quite sure who will move first. Masseria considers making that move himself. Not a strike, but a declaration. A firm assertion that eliminates ambiguity entirely. He weighs the risks carefully. Declaring too much too soon could unify opposition. Declaring too little could invite erosion. He chooses restraint again. Instead of forcing resolution, he forces accountability. Audits increase. Oversight becomes routine. Compliance is measured precisely. Deviations are corrected quietly. This approach stabilizes his control, but it also accelerates separation. Those who value autonomy feel suffocated. Those who value order feel reassured. Alignment becomes visible through behavior rather than words. Masseria studies these behaviors relentlessly. He notes who adapts easily and who resists subtly. He identifies where influence still flows naturally and where it requires pressure. He adjusts. Yet even as he adjusts, he senses momentum slipping beyond individual control. Too many decisions are now influenced by anticipation rather than direction. Too many actions are taken with future alignment in mind rather than present instruction. This is the danger of prolonged tension. Eventually, anticipation replaces authority. Masseria does not panic. He does not lash out. He does not betray doubt. Outwardly, he remains calm, precise, deliberate. Inwardly, he calculates. He considers whether decisive force would restore balance or shatter it, whether removing key figures would deter dissent or galvanize it, whether waiting would exhaust opposition or empower it. There is no perfect option. Leadership at this stage is about choosing the least damaging path. He leans toward containment. He believes that systems collapse not from pressure, but from fragmentation. If fragmentation can be prevented long enough, momentum will dissipate, ambition will cool, alignment will weaken. He doubles down on containment. Information flow is centralized. Decisions are documented. Deviations are corrected promptly. Authority becomes procedural rather than personal. This transformation stabilizes operations but drains loyalty. Loyalty does not thrive under procedure. It survives under it. The opposition adapts accordingly. They do not seek loyalty. They seek agreement. They frame their vision as efficiency, modernization, inevitability. They speak quietly of evolution, not revolution. Masseria hears these ideas indirectly and dismisses them as impatience disguised as progress. He believes history favors those who endure. He believes endurance requires discipline. He believes discipline must be enforced, and yet, the more he enforces, the clearer the lines become. Neutrality evaporates. Men begin to identify themselves through action, through hesitation or compliance, through initiative or restraint. The system, once fluid, becomes binary. This clarity brings calm, but it is the calm before resolution. Masseria senses that the next shift will not be gradual. It will be decisive, a moment where accumulated pressure releases in a single direction. He prepares for that moment meticulously. He secures loyalty where it exists. He reinforces structure where it matters. He positions himself not as a negotiator, but as a constant. He believes that when pressure resolves, it will resolve around him, because it always has. But belief, no matter how earned, does not control outcome. It only shapes response, and response will soon be required. Pressure does not break systems all at once. It searches for weakness, for the smallest opening, and widens it patiently. The first fracture is never dramatic. It is quiet, almost reasonable. It presents itself as a misunderstanding, a logistical issue, a misalignment of expectations. Only later does it reveal what it truly is: a signal. Joseph Masseria senses that signal before it reaches him fully. A routine arrangement falters, not collapses, just stumbles. A decision is delayed longer than expected. A message arrives incomplete. Nothing serious on its own, but taken together, the irregularities form a pattern too deliberate to ignore. This is not carelessness, it is testing. Masseria responds without urgency. Urgency would validate the test. Instead, he examines the fracture closely, probing its edges, measuring its depth. He asks simple questions and receives careful answers. He listens for what is said and for what is avoided. He recognizes restraint when he hears it. Someone, somewhere, has chosen to move without permission, but not without caution. They want to know how far authority reaches before it reacts. They want to know whether correction will come swiftly, or whether space exists to maneuver. Masseria understands the rules of this game intimately. He allows the fracture to remain visible just long enough for intention to surface. He does not fix it immediately. He watches who moves to address it independently, who communicates quietly, who benefits from the delay. The picture sharpens. This is not widespread defiance. It is selective initiative, controlled deviation, an attempt to prove that the system can function, perhaps function better without central direction. That idea irritates him more than any insult ever could, not because it challenges his authority, but because it underestimates what authority prevents. Systems may appear functional in moments of calm, but it is leadership that absorbs shock, that contains fallout, that prevents one failure from becoming many. He decides the fracture must be sealed. But how matters? A harsh response would expose fear. A soft response would invite repetition. He chooses precision. He intervenes indirectly. A related operation is adjusted, not punished, but rerouted. Resources are redistributed. Timelines shift. The environment changes just enough to remind everyone that nothing exists in isolation. That autonomy is conditional. That every path eventually intersects with authority. The message is subtle. It is also unmistakable. Reactions ripple outward. Some retreat. Others reassess. A few grow more careful, more convinced that discretion is essential. But the fracture does not close completely. It stabilizes. That stability concerns Masseria. A stabilized fracture means both sides are adapting. It means opposition, if that is what this has become, is capable of absorbing pressure without collapse. It means momentum exists beyond individual will. This realization shifts his thinking. Containment alone will not resolve this, nor will gradual correction. The system has reached a point where clarity must be forced, not through violence, but through definition. He begins preparing a decisive realignment, not an announcement, not a confrontation, a structural shift that removes ambiguity entirely. He plans to centralize authority in ways that cannot be bypassed, to redesign processes so that deviation becomes visible immediately, to eliminate informal pathways altogether. This is not an act of aggression. It is an act of finality. As he prepares, he remains outwardly calm. Meetings proceed. Deals continue. His demeanor does not change. Those watching closely may sense something tightening, but nothing explicit reveals itself. Meanwhile, the other side feels the pressure too. They sense that space is narrowing, that tolerance is ending, that patience has limits. They accelerate their own preparations quietly, not to strike, but to endure what they believe is coming. Both sides prepare without naming the conflict. This mutual restraint creates an uneasy stillness. The city feels it. Operations become conservative. Risk appetite shrinks. Everyone behaves as though something important is about to happen, even if no one can say what it is. Trust is measured. Words are weighed. Commitments are hedged. Masseria uses this stillness to his advantage. He moves pieces into place with methodical care. He consolidates oversight. He clarifies chains of responsibility. He ensures that authority is not only present, but unavoidable. He believes that once the realignment is complete, resistance will dissolve naturally, that clarity will remove the illusion of alternative leadership, that order will reassert itself without conflict. But realignments expose as much as they resolve. As structures shift, loyalties are tested. Some comply readily, others comply reluctantly. A few comply imperfectly. These imperfections reveal themselves in timing, in tone, and enthusiasm. Masseria notices every detail. He catalogues reactions without judgment, storing them for when certainty is required. The fracture widens slightly as a result. Not enough to break the system. Enough to prove that it exists. This proof changes everything. Masseria no longer wonders whether authority is being challenged. He knows it is. The question now is not if, but how it will be resolved. He considers decisive removal of influence, of access, of position. But removal creates martyrs, and martyrs inspire unity. He does not want unity among those who oppose him. He wants isolation, so he continues refining the structure, allowing pressure to expose weakness organically. He believes that when forced to choose between alignment and exclusion, most will choose alignment. He has seen this before, but he also knows that history does not repeat itself perfectly. Context changes. People change. Expectations evolve. The fracture he faces now is not born of chaos or greed alone. It is born of confidence, of belief that the system can be improved, of conviction that leadership should evolve. Conviction is harder to break than ambition. Masseria understands that whatever comes next will define not just authority but legacy, whether he is remembered as a stabilizer who preserved order, or as an obstacle who resisted inevitability. He does not dwell on legacy, he focuses on outcome. And the outcome is approaching faster now. The fracture has spoken. The response is forming. When pressure chooses a direction, everything else adjusts to follow it. What once felt flexible becomes fixed. What once allowed interpretation now demands precision. The world around Joseph Masseria enters this phase quietly, with a ceremony, as though it has been waiting for permission to solidify. He grants that permission deliberately. The realignment begins not with commands, but with design. Processes are restructured so that authority is embedded rather than expressed. Decisions must pass through fewer hands, but those hands are unmistakably connected to him. Oversight becomes systemic. Autonomy, where it exists, is conditional and visible. This approach is elegant. It avoids confrontation while eliminating ambiguity. It does not accuse anyone of disloyalty. It simply removes the space where disloyalty might hide. The system becomes efficient, predictable, orderly. For those aligned with Masseria, the change feels stabilizing. They know where they stand. They understand expectations. They feel protected by clarity. For those who valued flexibility, it feels suffocating. They comply, outwardly. Inwardly, they adjust their calculation. Masseria observes compliance carefully. He knows that obedience alone does not equal loyalty. True loyalty reveals itself through initiative aligned with intent, not merely adherence to rules. He looks for those signals, small acts that demonstrate commitment beyond obligation. Some provide them willingly. Others do not. This distinction matters. As the realignment progresses, the system becomes less tolerant of deviation. Timelines tighten. Accountability increases. Exceptions disappear. The environment rewards discipline and punishes improvisation. This is intentional. Improvisation is where alternatives form. Masseria believes that once alternatives are removed, resistance will dissipate, that people will adapt to structure rather than fight it, that order, once restored fully, will feel preferable to uncertainty. He may be right for many, but not for all. Those who feel constrained do not rush to defy. They become quieter, more observant. They reduce exposure. They follow rules precisely while seeking opportunities within them. They do not break structure, they test its limits. Masseria senses this testing and tightens further. He centralizes information flow. He limits lateral communication. He ensures that no decision of consequence occurs without oversight. This increases control, but it also slows responsiveness. Speed had been one of the system's advantages. Now, speed is sacrificed for certainty. The city adapts accordingly. Operations become conservative. Expansion pauses. Risk is minimized. Profits stabilize rather than grow. Some accept this trade-off willingly. Stability has its own value. Others see stagnation. They believe opportunity is being missed. That restraint is costing momentum. That leadership has become preservation rather than progression. These beliefs circulate quietly. Masseria hears echoes of them, but he does not engage. Engagement would legitimize the argument. He believes that results will speak louder than debate. He focuses on enforcement through consistency. Every rule applies equally. Every deviation is corrected. Every correction is documented. Authority becomes predictable, almost impersonal. This predictability reduces fear, but it also reduces reverence. People begin to respect the system rather than the man. Masseria accepts this as necessary. He tells himself that leadership does not require affection, that effectiveness matters more than sentiment, that history rewards those who hold structure intact through transition. Still, he feels something slipping, not control, connection. The informal bonds that once reinforced loyalty, shared understanding, mutual reliance, unspoken trust have thinned. What remains is obligation, efficient, reliable, but brittle. Brittle systems function perfectly until they do not. Masseria understands this risk intellectually, but he believes discipline will prevent fracture. He believes that once the realignment is complete, resistance will fade and connection will rebuild on firmer ground. Time will tell. As the narrowing path continues, choices become unavoidable. Those who once balanced between alignment and independence must now commit. Neutrality offers no advantage. The structure does not accommodate it. Some choose alignment fully. They invest themselves in the system, finding security in its clarity. Others choose withdrawal, reducing their role, limiting exposure, accepting diminished influence. A few choose preparation, not for rebellion but for contingency. Masseria notices these choices as they occur. He does not react emotionally. He records them mentally, categorizing each response with precision. He believes knowledge is the final safeguard of power, yet even knowledge has limits. The more the system narrows, the more it channels pressure toward a single point. That point is leadership itself. Everything now reflects back to him, every success, every delay, every missed opportunity. This concentration of responsibility is both strength and vulnerability. Masseria embraces it. He has always believed that leadership means carrying weight others cannot. He accepts the burden without complaint. He doubles down on discipline, believing that endurance will outlast dissent. But endurance requires adaptation, and adaptation requires recognition. The city around him continues to function, but its energy feels muted. Creativity has given way to compliance. Initiative has given way to procedure. The machine runs smoothly, but quietly. Some interpret this quiet as peace. Others interpret it as waiting. Masseria senses the waiting now more clearly than ever. He knows that prolonged containment does not eliminate pressure, it stores it. He believes that once the realignment settles, pressure will release harmlessly. But pressure does not always release where expected. He stands firm, convinced that authority, once clarified and embedded, cannot be displaced without chaos. He believes that those who seek change will eventually tire of restraint and return to order. He believes that patience will resolve what force cannot. Yet as the narrowing path reaches its tightest point, one truth becomes unavoidable. When options disappear, action becomes inevitable. And action, once taken, reshapes everything. Some moments arrive quietly, yet carry weight heavy enough to bend futures. The calm before them is deceptive, almost comforting, until a single choice crystallizes all surrounding uncertainty into a fixed reality. Joseph Masseria senses such a moment approaching, not through alarm, but through the meticulous layering of details, behaviors, and timing. Every hesitation, every compliance, every small deviation now points toward inevitable action. The fracture he'd watched, nurtured, and contained reaches a threshold. It is no longer just a test. It is a question posed by circumstance demanding answer. And like all true tests of authority, it leaves no room for ambiguity. The system, as balance, will shift in one direction or another, and the results will be permanent. Masseria begins his orchestration quietly. Meetings are scheduled with precision. Operations are reviewed with scrutiny. Intermediaries are selected not for ambition, but for their reliability under pressure. Each element is positioned to function as both shield and mirror, reinforcing structure, reflecting compliance, and exposing any hesitation. He does not speak of his intentions. Words would diminish control. Instead, he acts with calculated subtlety, allowing the environment itself to broadcast expectation. Routes are slightly altered. Timing of shipments is precise. Communications are centralized. Small corrections ripple outward, observable but not dramatic. The point is not intimidation. The point is inevitability. Responses arrive in measured increments. Some comply immediately, grateful for clarity. Others comply cautiously, testing boundaries without defying rules. A few fail entirely, their missteps revealing the limits of discretion and the unreliability of previously trusted networks. Each reaction informs the next step, each hesitation mapped, cataloged, and anticipated. Masseria understands the importance of restraint. The first irreversible decisions cannot be taken recklessly, for mistakes at this stage create consequences beyond correction. Timing is paramount. The moment must feel natural, inevitable, as though the system itself has chosen its path rather than him. The first of these decisions falls quietly. A minor leader in a profitable network is reassigned, not removed, not punished, but redirected to a less influential role. Resources follow him. but access to strategic operations does not. The adjustment is subtle enough to seem incidental to outsiders but unmistakable to those who watch closely. Reactions are telling. Some nod silently, recognizing the logic. Others hesitate, sensing that the structure has shifted permanently. No one protests. Resistance now carries risk greater than opportunity. Even those who previously tested boundaries understand that choice has arrived, whether they embrace it or not. The second decision follows, reinforcing the first. A previously autonomous operation is centralized. Communication lines are rerouted. Oversight is increased. Men who once acted independently must now submit to procedure, directly under Masseria's observation. Compliance becomes an act of self-preservation, while deviation becomes a liability. At this point, pressure reaches its peak. The system, once fluid, has been forced to a new alignment. All participants must choose, integrate fully into the revised structure, or accept the consequences of isolation. Those who accept alignment regain security and predictability. Those who resist face limited opportunity, increased scrutiny, and potential exclusion. Masseria monitors these choices with patience. He understands that the most dangerous opposition does not act immediately. It simmers in silence, testing limits, seeking patterns, and waiting for miscalculation. This is the point where foresight matters most, where small oversights compound into critical errors. He ensures none occur. Every communication, every transfer, every operational adjustment is reviewed with care. Deviations are corrected immediately but subtly, reinforcing the notion that authority is precise, inevitable, and unavoidable. The irreversible nature of these decisions carries both clarity and risk. Clarity, because alignment and responsibility are defined with unprecedented precision. Risk, because centralizing authority concentrates accountability, and therefore vulnerability entirely on Masseria himself. Every outcome, positive or negative, reflects directly on his judgment. There is no buffer, no intermediary to absorb failure, yet he embraces the responsibility. Leadership, he believes, is not about diffusing weight, it is about bearing it. Authority is not validated by avoidance of risk, but by navigation of it, by guiding systems through inevitable moments of choice with foresight, discipline, and resolve. As these adjustments solidify, the city itself mirrors the change. Operations run more smoothly, though less spontaneously. Profits stabilize. Conflict diminishes. The invisible chains of obedience tighten, visible only to those paying attention. Efficiency increases at the cost of autonomy. Predictability replaces improvisation. Order prevails, though it carries a quiet tension and understanding. The absolute control demands constant vigilance. Within this new framework, Masseria's role transforms. He is no longer just a decision maker, he is the axis around which all outcomes pivot. Every success, every delay, every minor error is filtered through him. His presence is less performative and more structural. Authority has become embedded in process, in expectation, in consequence, and the system reflects it. Yet even embedded authority has limits. The moment that once forced choice now also crystallizes tension. Those previously hesitant must adapt permanently. Their silence, previously ambiguous, becomes indicative. The fracture that once threatened has been contained, but the underlying ambition, the desire for independence, for recognition remains. It cannot be eliminated, only managed. Masseria understands this intuitively. He has faced crises before, but each scenario carries unique dynamics. This one is different because the choices now made are irreversible. They define not just immediate operations, but the trajectory of the system for years to come. The path has been narrowed, and the landscape is permanently altered. The consequences of this realignment will unfold gradually. Some will accept it as inevitability and integrate fully. Others will comply outwardly while preserving subtle distance internally, biding their time. A few may choose to disengage entirely, leaving gaps that will eventually require attention. Masseria is not complacent. He anticipates, adjusts, and reinforces, recognizing that irreversible decisions, while clarifying, do not eliminate future challenges. Leadership, he knows, is a continuous cycle of pressure, adaptation, and alignment. But the present moment, this narrowing of choices, marks a turning point, a stage where authority has asserted itself decisively, where control is unmistakable, and where the consequences of action or inaction are immediate, tangible, and permanent. He stands at the center of the system he has meticulously constructed. The first fractures have been repaired. The irreversible choices have defined alignment. The pressure, once dispersed, has been channeled into a clear direction. Order now exists not only as a principle, but as an observable, enforceable reality. And in this moment, Masseria understands fully what leadership demands: constant vigilance, unyielding discipline, and the courage to make choices that cannot be undone. The system may evolve again, tension may resurface, and ambition may stir. But for now, he has navigated the first irreversible turn, and the foundation he has rebuilt is stronger, tighter, and more resilient than ever. Stability is never permanent. Even the most meticulously constructed system must endure trials, moments that reveal strength, expose weakness, and define the limits of authority. Joseph Masseria feels the first test of his newly structured world approaching, though it is subtle at first. Nothing explodes, nothing shatters, yet the air hums with expectation. The city moves, seemingly unchanged, but beneath its surface, currents have shifted. The test begins with a minor incident, a shipment delayed, a minor dispute among intermediaries. A procedural error that, under the new structure, should have been impossible. On its own, the event is inconsequential. Its significance lies in how people respond. Obedience, initiative, hesitation, each reveals alignment and intent. Masseria observes quietly. He does not rush to correct. He allows the structure itself to dictate outcome. Every process is designed to highlight both compliance and deviation. The system, reinforced and centralized, now functions as a mirror reflecting the loyalty, judgment, and discipline of each participant. Some respond immediately and appropriately. They adhere to protocol, consult the correct channels, and restore order efficiently. Their actions confirm reliability and demonstrate understanding of the new framework. They reinforce Masseria's authority by operating within it, not merely obeying it. Others falter. They hesitate or attempt independent correction without coordination. Even if results are acceptable, the deviation exposes a lack of alignment. These moments are subtle but telling, and Masseria notes them with precision. He understands that discipline is not defined by outcomes alone, but by the method through which outcomes are achieved. The minor incident escalates naturally into a controlled challenge. It is not rebellion, nor open defiance. It is an opportunity calculated, measured, deliberate for individuals, testing the boundaries of authority to evaluate consequences. These hidden tensions, previously dormant, now surface through small, observable acts. Masseria acts indirectly. He strengthens oversight in affected areas not as punishment but as reinforcement. He positions trusted intermediaries to monitor compliance and report deviations immediately. Resources are realigned, communication streamlined, and authority subtly reaffirmed. Each action serves dual purposes: correction and demonstration. The system itself shows participants the cost of misalignment without his overt intervention. The response reveals patterns. Some participants, previously cautious, now display competence and loyalty under pressure. Their initiative aligns seamlessly with expectation, proving that authority can guide rather than control entirely. Others, while capable, prioritize self-interest or display hesitation, signaling potential future fractures. Masseria catalogs these reactions carefully. Observation is as important as correction. Understanding intent before action ensures the system remains intact. Pressure begins to rise naturally. Even controlled incidents provoke anxiety among those untested by such structure. Men who once relied on flexibility now encounter rigidity. The decision-making must align precisely with established procedure, and the consequences of misalignment are immediate and visible. The environment, previously tolerant of variance, now enforces clarity. This enforcement strengthens some loyalties and strains others. Those aligned with Masseria embrace order. They see structure as stability, predictability, and protection. Those resistant to consolidation feel restricted, yet cannot openly challenge it. Their frustration manifests in subtle ways: selective initiative, delayed communication, careful withholding of information. These behaviors are invisible to most but unmistakable to Masseria. He anticipates them. Every deviation, every hesitation, every act of quiet resistance is accounted for. He does not confront directly unless necessary. Instead, He allows the structure itself to clarify expectation. Procedures reveal compliance. Oversight reveals discipline. And responsibility reveals loyalty. The system enforces alignment, leaving participants with no ambiguity about the rules or their consequences. The test intensifies when a larger, more complex operation comes under scrutiny. Multiple moving parts, money flow, enforcement, protection, and logistics intersect in ways that require coordination and precision. This operation serves as the ultimate measure of the new structure's effectiveness. It tests not only the reliability of individuals, but also the resilience of the system itself. Masseria observes with deliberate patience. He does not interfere unless necessary. He watches who anticipates challenges and acts preemptively, who communicates clearly, who adheres strictly to protocol, and who attempts improvisation under pressure. Every detail, every nuance, every decision informs his understanding of strength and vulnerability within the network. As the operation unfolds, the first real cracks appear, but not where expected. Minor lapses in communication emerge, revealing hidden dependencies. Individuals fail to coordinate effectively across departments, exposing weaknesses in the network despite personal competence. These lapses are small but significant, showing that even a tightly controlled system is vulnerable when human factors intervene. Masseria addresses the gaps quietly but decisively. Resources are reallocated, communication channels clarified, and responsibilities reassigned. The correction is not punitive, it is structural. By doing so, he reinforces authority, demonstrates adaptability, ensures that the system functions predictably even under stress. The test has highlighted both strength and weakness, and he uses the results to strengthen the system further. Through this trial, hidden tensions also surface. Those who previously relied on influence rather than competence now realize that authority depends on performance, alignment, and discipline. Their impatience or resentment becomes visible through subtle choices, hesitated responses, selective cooperation, and guarded interactions. Masseria notes these patterns meticulously, knowing they represent both risk and opportunity for future management. The first test of structure concludes with calm, but it leaves a lasting imprint. Authority has been reinforced, loyalty clarified, and potential vulnerabilities identified. Participants now understand the boundaries clearly, the consequences of misalignment visibly, and the expectations of performance definitively. Masseria reflects on the outcome. He recognizes that leadership is a continuous cycle of testing, observation, correction, and reinforcement. Structure alone is insufficient. Authority must be applied thoughtfully, pressure must be measured, and human behavior must be anticipated. The system functions best when it balances control with subtle observation, allowing both compliance and initiative to coexist without threatening overall stability. This experience also confirms a broader truth. Even in a meticulously organized system, hidden tensions never disappear, they only shift form. Ambition, impatience, and self-interest persist, manifesting in subtle, observable ways. The role of leadership, Masseria understands, is not to eliminate these tensions but to manage them strategically, channeling them into outcomes that reinforce stability rather than threaten it. The city continues its operations, seemingly unchanged to outside observers. Yet, beneath the surface, the network has been tested and refined. Authority, once ambiguous, now stands visible, structured and decisive. Loyalty has been clarified, resilience demonstrated, and vulnerabilities identified. Masseria knows this is only the beginning. Every structure faces tests, and every test reveals what cannot be ignored. Leadership, he understands, is defined not by moments of calm, but by the ability to navigate pressure, adapt to hidden challenges, and emerge with clarity intact. And as he surveys the controlled environment, he senses the next phase, approaching one where alignment will be challenged not quietly, but openly, and where his capacity to maintain authority will be tested in ways far more complex than simple compliance. Authority is easiest to maintain when it is respected quietly, but the true test of power comes when respect becomes hesitation, and hesitation transforms into challenge. Joseph Masseria senses this transformation emerging not in whispers or missteps, but in deliberate actions that are impossible to ignore. The calm of structure is giving way to confrontation, and the forces he has contained are preparing to assert themselves openly. It begins subtly, Meetings that were once procedural become arenas for negotiation. Decisions that were once executed without question now provoke discussion, debate, and delay. Suggestions offered as questions carry weight far beyond their appearance. Every word, every gesture is measured, calculated to probe limits. The silence that once concealed intent is replaced by intentional signals of resistance. Masseria notices immediately. He does not overreact. He has learned that premature confrontation often strengthens opposition. Instead, he observes. Every hesitation, every subtle shift, every minor deviation is noted. He knows that open challenge is the culmination of calculated tension, the point where preparation meets opportunity. The first direct confrontation occurs during a negotiation involving multiple intermediaries. A faction previously restrained by structure now speaks up, not aggressively but assertively. They propose alternatives to a plan that Masseria himself initiated, framing their position as logical, reasonable, and unavoidable. Their tone is careful, their logic precise, and their confidence deliberate. This is no rash defiance, this is strategic assertion. Masseria responds with composure. He does not interrupt. He does not contradict immediately. He listens, allowing the challenge to unfold fully. He recognizes the moment for what it is, an opportunity to assess loyalty, measure resolve, and evaluate the depth of dissent. In these moments, patience is power. Overreaction would validate the opposition. Underreaction risks appearing weak. The faction presents their argument, anticipating potential objections. They speak not only for themselves, but for silent supporters, demonstrating coordination, foresight, and discipline. Masseria observes the group dynamics closely, noting who leads, who follows, and who remains passive. Each position reveals intention, capability, and potential threat. Once the presentation concludes, Masseria responds not with anger, but with precision. He addresses points systematically, correcting inaccuracies, realigning priorities, and subtly reinforcing the authority structure. He does not dismiss ideas outright, nor does he concede. His response demonstrates that the system allows discussion but cannot tolerate deviation from ultimate control. This measured response has immediate impact. Some supporters of the challenging faction hesitate, reconsidering alignment. Others double down, encouraged by the acknowledgement that their ideas are being weighed seriously. Masseria notes these reactions carefully, understanding that each decision now carries both operational and political significance. The challenge escalates. Over the following days, minor operations become venues for testing boundaries. Factions attempt to assert influence, subtly delaying reports, redirecting resources, influencing intermediaries. Each act is a calculated probe designed to test response, identify weakness, and measure authority's limits. The system, once predictable, now operates under pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. Masseria adapts strategically. He tightens oversight without appearing oppressive, centralizes critical decisions while allowing minor autonomy to maintain engagement, and leverages loyal intermediaries to reinforce compliance. He recognizes that force alone cannot secure obedience. It must be coupled with structure, communication, and subtle manipulation. Authority must feel natural, not imposed. As the open challenge continues, Masseria identifies the faction as strategy. They seek legitimacy rather than confrontation, influence rather than chaos. Their goal is not to destroy the system but to redirect it in ways that favor their interests. They operate with patience, coordination, and discipline, qualities that make them formidable, even within a system designed to contain dissent. Masseria recognizes the threat. He understands that discipline within the opposition amplifies its potential, yet he remains confident in his control, believing that strategic patience, precise observation, and selective intervention will preserve the balance. He knows that every act of defiance, every hesitation, every subtle maneuver create patterns he can predict, interpret, and ultimately neutralize. Tensions rise further when the faction begins influencing smaller intermediaries. They provide guidance outside of Masseria's oversight, redirecting resources and subtly altering operations. These deviations, while not overtly disobedient, undermine efficiency and demonstrate that authority is being tested in new ways. Masseria notes each occurrence, mapping connections, evaluating motivations, and anticipating potential outcomes. He responds through restructuring rather than confrontation. Positions are reassigned, reporting lines clarified, and access to key resources redistributed. These changes are subtle yet effective. They reinforce authority without provoking open rebellion. Masseria ensures that the system itself demonstrates consequences, allowing participants to recognize the limits of autonomy without public reprimand. By the end of the week, the open challenge reaches a peak. The faction has revealed its strength, coordination, and capacity for influence. They have tested boundaries thoroughly and gathered information about Masseria's responsiveness. The city, observing from a distance, continues its operations largely unaware. Yet, the internal network hums with tension, calculated moves, and hidden alignments. Masseria reflects on the confrontation. He recognizes that leadership is not merely about control, it is about managing perception, navigating human ambition, and shaping outcomes without creating irreversible fractures. The open challenge has clarified loyalty, revealed ambition, and tested structure. It has also provided an opportunity for refinement, an opportunity to strengthen the system in ways subtle but permanent. He implements adjustments immediately. Key positions are reinforced with trusted individuals, communication channels streamlined, and decision-making processes clarified. Factions are neither punished nor dismissed outright. Instead, the environment is recalibrated to highlight accountability, streamline authority, and restore predictability. The challenge, once threatening, has become a tool for reinforcement. Masseria understands the lesson clearly. Open confrontation, when managed strategically, strengthens rather than undermines authority. It exposes weaknesses, clarifies loyalty, and allows for deliberate correction. Authority is not diminished by challenge, it is defined by response. As the city continues its rhythm, tension remains but is now contained. Authority has been tested openly, yet the system endures. Those who challenged understand the boundaries. Those who observed understand expectations. The balance has shifted, subtly but permanently, in favor of structured leadership and disciplined oversight. Masseria reflects on the nature of open challenge. It is inevitable in any system that contains ambition, intelligence, and opportunity. It must be observed, interpreted, and managed. Response must be measured, precise, and strategic. Leadership, he understands, is not merely the act of commanding, it is the orchestration of action, perception, and consequence to maintain control without creating unnecessary fractures. The open challenge has ended not with victory or defeat, but with clarity. Authority is visible, aligned, and reinforced. Loyalties have been clarified, ambitions mapped, and the system adjusted. The test has strengthened both the structure and the leader, proving that power, when combined with strategy, discipline, and patience, can endure even when directly confronted. And yet, Masseria knows this is only the beginning. The network will face future challenges, subtle, direct, or unpredictable. Ambition will stir again. Patience will be tested. Authority will be measured in ways not yet anticipated. The system has survived, but vigilance must continue. Leadership is perpetual, and every day brings a new test, a new challenge, and a new opportunity to demonstrate that true authority is not inherited, but earned and maintained. In any network, influence rarely flows openly. It travels in quiet currents, invisible to those who observe only surface movements. Joseph Masseria understands this deeply. Even as authority is reinforced, even as challenges are managed, hidden alliances form beneath the apparent structure. These alliances are neither overtly threatening nor explicitly loyal. They exist in subtleties, shared understanding, whispered counsel, and synchronized action. Masseria begins noticing patterns he had overlooked. Decisions that appear independent sometimes share a common rhythm. Minor operations, seemingly unconnected, occasionally converge with unusual efficiency. Individuals who rarely interact seem to anticipate each other's actions. These are signals, subtle yet unmistakable to a leader attuned to nuance. He recognizes that hidden alliances serve multiple purposes. For some, they provide security and network of understanding that cushions risk. For others, they are strategic, a way to pool influence, coordinate ambition, and gain leverage over central authority. In every case, alliances carry both risk and opportunity. Masseria observes quietly, gathering data. He does not confront or disrupt immediately. Doing so too soon would reveal his awareness, potentially fracturing loyalty or provoking premature action. Instead, he allows alliances to operate within controlled parameters, monitoring their reach, influence, and intent. The first clear manifestation occurs in the movement of resources. A set of operations shows coordination between individuals who had previously acted independently. Timing, allocation, and execution are precise, demonstrating mutual awareness and deliberate planning. The operation succeeds, but the underlying alignment is the real story. It signals organized coordination without central direction. Masseria evaluates carefully. The alliance is not overtly disloyal, they do not challenge authority directly, nor do they disrupt outcomes. Yet their independence, their capacity to operate efficiently outside direct supervision represents both potential threat and hidden value. Authority must account for this subtle power. He begins a process of subtle influence. Positions are reassigned to encourage transparency. Reporting channels are adjusted to increase visibility without diminishing autonomy. He initiates informal interactions, conversations designed to gauge intent and reinforce loyalty without exposing suspicion. Each move is calculated to balance recognition of competence with the reinforcement of hierarchical authority. The members of the alliance respond cautiously. Some welcome the attention, perceiving it as acknowledgement of their capabilities. Others remain reserved, testing the limits of autonomy and observing the consequences of coordination. Masseria notes their reactions, understanding that alignment in hidden networks is both relational and strategic. The second manifestation emerges in the form of coordinated communication. Messages, instructions, and guidance circulate in ways that suggest a shared understanding among certain groups. They anticipate each other's decisions, reduce duplication, and create efficiencies that are visible to observant leadership. Masseria recognizes the sophistication. This is coordination born of trust and shared purpose, not chaos or coincidence. He decides to engage without confrontation. He identifies points of overlap, aligning the interests of the hidden alliance with broader organizational objectives. By integrating their initiatives subtly into the central structure, he retains control while allowing competence to flourish. This approach strengthens the system rather than suppressing talent, converting potential risk into operational advantage. Yet, the presence of hidden alliances also introduces tension. Individuals not included, observing coordination they do not participate in, begin to interpret patterns as favoritism or imbalance. The social equilibrium shifts. Some attempt to form counter-alliances, while others withdraw quietly, assessing the system and their place within it. Masseria anticipates these dynamics. He understands that perception of power is as important as power itself. He ensures that transparency, recognition, and accountability are balanced. Communication is precise, assignments are clearly justified, and authority remains unchallenged. By managing perception, he reduces the likelihood of unnecessary conflict while preserving the functionality of hidden networks. The alliance members themselves become more cautious under observation. Their actions, previously fluid, are now filtered through awareness of oversight. Efficiency remains, but subtle hesitation emerges. This provides Masseria with further insight into the boundaries of autonomy, the resilience of coordination, and the true loyalties of individuals within the network. Over time, the hidden alliances demonstrate their value. Operations are more efficient, resource allocation improves, and minor crises are mitigated through preemptive coordination. Masseria uses these outcomes as reinforcement of his strategy. Autonomy can exist within structure, competence can be nurtured without undermining authority, and influence can be guided without coercion. At the same time, he remains vigilant. Hidden alliances, by their nature, can shift loyalties quickly if incentives change. Trust is conditional. Coordination outside direct oversight carries the potential for dissent if ambition outweighs alignment. Masseria implements measures to maintain balance, periodic review, strategic reinforcement, and subtle integration of initiatives into central objectives. The environment itself begins to reflect this duality. Visible structure and authority coexist with subtle coordination and independent initiative. The city's operations continue smoothly, yet beneath the surface, multiple layers of influence interact. Efficiency improves without overt confrontation. Authority is reinforced without overt restriction. Ambition is guided without suppression. Masseria reflects on the lesson of hidden alliances. They are inevitable. in any network containing talent, ambition, and intelligence. They cannot be eliminated without fracturing capability. They cannot be ignored without risking subtle erosion of authority. The key is balance: recognition without empowerment, integration without compromise, observation without overt suspicion. As the system stabilizes under his strategic guidance, Masseria senses the next phase approaching. Hidden alliances, now visible and partially integrated, will face their own tests. Ambition will continue to stir, loyalty will be measured, and authority will again be challenged, not quietly, but in ways that will force direct response. He prepares accordingly. Positions are adjusted to ensure oversight. Communication channels are clarified to monitor coordination. Accountability is reinforced to maintain discipline. The network is stronger, yet more complex. Power flows not just vertically, but horizontally in subtle, measured currents that require constant attention. Masseria knows that true leadership is the ability to navigate this complexity, to observe patterns, interpret intent, guide behavior, and maintain authority while allowing competence and initiative to flourish. Hidden alliances are both a risk and an asset. Managed carefully, they strengthen the system. Ignored, they threaten it. And so, with awareness, strategy, and calculated patience, Masseria continues to navigate the intricate web of loyalty, ambition, and influence. The visible authority stands firm, while the hidden networks operate under careful observation. The balance is delicate, the tension constant, and the stakes higher than ever. The city continues its rhythm, unaware of the subtle recalibration taking place. But within the network, a new reality has emerged. Alliances are visible, influence is measured, and leadership must constantly adapt to the hidden currents that flow beneath the surface. Pressure is invisible until it is irresistible. It begins as tension, a quiet weight that shifts perception, adjusts behavior, and reshapes priorities. For Joseph Masseria, the pressure building within his network has long been measured, managed, and contained. Yet now, it begins to manifest openly, driven by ambition, impatience, and opportunity. The subtle currents of influence, previously hidden, converge into a force demanding acknowledgement. The first signs are operational. Minor inefficiencies, previously corrected before they mattered, persist. Communication delays increase. Resources are redirected without explanation. The hidden alliances, once discreet and cooperative, begin asserting themselves more overtly, testing limits with careful timing and coordinated action. Every move is deliberate, aimed at measuring response, establishing influence, and exploiting gaps. Masseria watches without haste. He understands the psychology of pressure. It is not broken by immediate reaction, but by strategic anticipation. Every act, every hesitation, every redirection reveals intent, ambition, and alignment. He catalogs each behavior with precision, mapping influence and evaluating potential outcomes. The first overt challenge emerges when a faction proposes a significant operational change designed to shift control of a profitable network toward themselves. Their proposal is framed logically, emphasizing efficiency, profitability, and necessity. To an outsider, it appears reasonable, even prudent. To Masseria, it signals an unmistakable assertion of influence. He responds strategically. Rather than immediate confrontation, he initiates a controlled evaluation of the proposal. Data is gathered. Risks are assessed. Resources are scrutinized. The factionist influence is acknowledged without conceding authority. By allowing the proposal to advance through formal channels, he forces visibility, accountability, and decision-making under structured oversight. The faction presses further. Their coordination is seamless. Communications are synchronized. Timing is precise. Subordinates follow directives without hesitation. It becomes clear that hidden alliances are now operating with efficiency rivaling the central authority itself. The system, once predictable, is now actively contested. Masseria acts decisively but subtly. He strengthens oversight over key operations while preserving the outward appearance of autonomy. Reporting lines are clarified, access to resources is recalibrated, and loyal intermediaries are positioned to influence outcomes subtly. Authority is reinforced without over-confrontation, demonstrating control while allowing the faction to act within controlled parameters. Pressure intensifies. Ambition within the faction begins to inspire others. Independent actors, previously neutral, align strategically to gain advantage. The network, previously stable, now experiences a surge of coordinate initiatives, some aligned with authority, some testing limits. The environment is no longer calm. Tension becomes palpable, though still measured, precise, and disciplined. Masseria recognizes the stakes. Open confrontation would fracture the system. Inaction would allow momentum to shift irreversibly. The challenge must be neutralized strategically using influence, observation, and structural control rather than force alone. He begins implementing a multi-layered approach. Integration of influence. Members of the faction are given responsibility within clearly defined boundaries, ensuring their ambitions are directed toward outcomes aligned with central authority. Strategic observation. Communications are monitored subtly, allowing him to anticipate maneuvers without provoking resistance. Reinforcement of hierarchy, reporting lines, procedural oversight, and accountability measures are clarified, making deviation visible and measurable. Psychological positioning. Subtle signals reinforce the inevitability of authority, reminding participants that autonomy exists only within the structure he controls. The faction, sensing oversight, adapts carefully. They continue to assert influence but with increasing caution. Initiatives are framed as cooperative, language is moderated, and timing is calculated. Pressure has not diminished their ambition, it has refined it. They now operate within a tension-filled environment, where every move carries consequence and every success is scrutinized. Masseria anticipates these dynamics. He understands that pressure, when properly managed, can produce results greater than compliance alone. He leverages the faction's initiative to strengthen operations, guiding their actions into channels that enhance efficiency while preserving authority. Ambition is not suppressed, it is harnessed. Yet, the situation remains precarious. Hidden alliances, empowered by competence and coordination, now represent a significant variable within the system. Authority is no longer solely defined by position. It is tested continuously by initiative, coordination, and ambition. Every act of leadership must account for multiple layers of influence simultaneously. As operations continue, the pressure reaches a tipping point. A critical resource flow, previously controlled centrally, is partially redirected by the faction to optimize an operation of strategic importance. The move is precise, calculated, and visible. It demonstrates both competence and subtle defiance. The system's response must be immediate, measured, and definitive. Masseria acts. He does not confront the faction publicly. He implements adjustments to resource allocation, oversight, and reporting, ensuring both operational success and preservation of authority. At the same time, he subtly reinforces dependence on central coordination, highlighting the benefits of alignment and the risks of deviation. Authority is clarified without humiliation. Control is reinforced without overt conflict. The response achieved balance. Operations succeed. The faction's initiative is acknowledged. Authority remains unchallenged. The hidden alliances, now operating openly, understand the perimeters of influence. The pressure has not been neutralized, it has been channeled. Ambition continues, but within boundaries carefully defined and monitored. Masseria reflects on the dynamics of pressure. It is neither enemy nor ally. It is a force to be understood, anticipated, and guided. Properly harnessed, it produces innovation, efficiency, and resilience. Mismanaged, it threatens collapse. Leadership requires mastery over this invisible force, using strategy, observation, and influence rather than brute strength alone. By the end of the test, the system has adapted. Authority is reinforced. Loyalties are clarified. Ambition is directed into productive channels. Hidden alliances continue to operate, but are now integrated within the structure. Their influence recognized yet bounded. The network functions more efficiently, precisely, and predictably than before, even under pressure. Masseria knows this is not a final resolution. Pressure will continue to manifest in new forms, ambition will resurface in unexpected channels, and authority will require continuous adjustment. The lesson is clear. Power is maintained not by elimination of challenge, but by mastery over the force that tests it, by foresight, and by the strategic integration of influence into a controlled framework. And so, the city continues its rhythm. Operations move with efficiency, authority is visible, ambition is measured, pressure, once invisible, now flows predictably within boundaries defined by strategy, discipline, and calculated oversight. Leadership has endured, tested not through compliance alone, but through the deliberate management of influence, loyalty, and human ambition. Leadership, Joseph Masseria knows, is measured not during calm but when multiple crises converge, each demanding immediate action, and each carrying consequences that ripple beyond immediate comprehension. The system he has meticulously structured, strengthened by realignment and guided by strategic oversight, now faces pressure from several directions simultaneously. The city hums with unseen currents, alliances shift subtly, and ambition grows louder, testing both patience and judgment. The first crisis emerges in operation. A profitable network encounters disruption when an external partner delays delivery of critical resources. The delay is minor, yet its impact threatens timelines across multiple divisions. It is the kind of incident that would have been manageable in isolation, but now, layered with other pressures, it carries heightened significance. Masseria does not react impulsively. Immediate action could stabilize one area but exacerbate tension elsewhere. He evaluates the situation calmly, mapping potential outcomes, reviewing alternatives, and prioritizing decisions according to both strategic importance and potential consequences. His approach is deliberate, calculated, and precise. Simultaneously, the hidden alliances he has been observing begin to assert influence more boldly. They offer solutions to the operational disruption, coordinating resources and personnel outside direct oversight. Their initiative demonstrates competence, foresight, and subtle assertion of independence. This is both opportunity and threat. The problem can be resolved efficiently, yet authority must be reinforced without diminishing autonomy entirely. Masseria weighs options. Immediate intervention could suppress the alliance's initiative, but risk disengagement or resentment. Allowing them to act freely could solve the operational problem but might signal vulnerability. His solution is strategic. He subtly redirects resources, granting the alliance the ability to implement solutions within a defined framework. Authority remains intact, outcomes improve, and the hidden alliance is reinforced as both capable and accountable. At the same time, internal tensions arise elsewhere. Subordinates, observing the visible empowerment of the alliance, question their own roles and influence. Some become cautious, limiting initiative to avoid risk. Others attempt to assert themselves in subtle ways, testing boundaries or vying for recognition. Masseria observes all movements carefully, understanding that ambition, like pressure, cannot be ignored, it must be guided. A third complication arises unexpectedly. Law enforcement begins investigating a minor yet sensitive operation. While the scrutiny is not immediately threatening, it introduces risk, delays, and unpredictability. Any misstep could draw attention to operations, partners, or individuals whose loyalty remains conditional. Here, discretion is paramount. Public action would magnify risk. Inaction could allow exposure. Masseria responds with a combination of operational adjustment and strategic communication. Sensitive processes are temporarily rerouted. Information flows are restricted to trusted intermediaries. Personnel are briefed in a controlled manner, balancing transparency with operational security. Authority remains clear, operations continue, and the system demonstrates resilience under pressure. Through these overlapping crises, the environment becomes a crucible, revealing capability, loyalty, and initiative in real time. Every individual's response contributes to a broader picture: who can act under pressure, who will defer, who will innovate, and who will resist. Masseria notes these distinctions meticulously, understanding that the human element is as critical as structural oversight. Hidden alliances play a pivotal role. Their coordinated efforts stabilize key operations, but their visibility highlights the necessity of strategic balance. Masseria must integrate their contributions without signaling dependence. Their successes are acknowledged subtly, their autonomy bounded, and their influence guided toward systemic benefit. The lesson is clear: capable subordinates must be empowered, but their alignment must be continuous and reinforced. As the crises continue to unfold, decision-making becomes a high-stakes balancing act. Each choice carries cascading effects. Each delay has consequences. Each action communicates authority, intent, and expectation. Masseria prioritizes clarity over speed, precision over impulsiveness, and strategic foresight over reactive judgment. The operational network stabilizes gradually. Minor disruptions are resolved through coordinated action. Alliances are reinforced without threatening authority, and risk is mitigated through careful oversight. Simultaneously, subordinates learn valuable lessons. Competence must align with loyalty. Initiative must operate within structure, and ambition must be guided by discipline. The convergence of challenges also crystallizes a deeper truth. Leadership is not merely the act of making decisions, but the orchestration of outcomes in a complex system of interdependent forces. Authority is not absolute. It is relational, earned, and maintained through perception, guidance, and strategic intervention. Competence, loyalty, ambition, and initiative must all be managed simultaneously, requiring constant observation, adaptation, and influence. By nightfall, the high-stakes environment begins to stabilize. Crises have been resolved. Authority has been reinforced. Hidden alliances remain integrated but bounded. Ambition has been channeled into productive outcomes. The network demonstrates resilience, efficiency, and adaptability, yet the system is no longer simple or predictable. It has been tested under pressure, revealing both strengths and vulnerabilities. Masseria reflects on the day as events. He understands that the test of leadership is continuous. Authority must be constantly reinforced, influence must be monitored, and ambition must be guided without suppression. The system survives, yet it requires vigilance, foresight, and adaptability at every moment. He also recognizes that this moment where multiple pressures converge simultaneously is a turning point. The network has proven capable of responding to challenge, but it has also revealed potential points of strain. The hidden alliances, now operating with confidence, demonstrate both opportunity and risk. The capacity for independent initiative has been tested and validated, yet must remain aligned with central authority to prevent future fractures. Masseria, as decisions throughout the crisis exemplify the essence of leadership: clarity under pressure, precision in execution, strategic integration of influence, and continuous observation of human behavior. The system, as resilience is not accidental, it is the product of deliberate design, reinforced authority, and the careful balance between control and autonomy. As the city quiets for the night, operations normalized yet subtly altered by the day. As events, Masseria contemplates the path ahead. Challenges will continue, pressures will emerge, and ambition will stir unpredictably. Authority is maintained not through force alone, but through strategy, observation, and continuous adaptation. Leadership is perpetual, and the stakes remain high. The lessons are clear. Crises test more than operational skill. They test judgment, perception, and the capacity to manage complexity. Authority is reinforced not by suppression of initiative but by its strategic guidance. Hidden alliances, when integrated carefully, strengthen rather than threaten. Pressure, when managed astutely, can produce outcomes far beyond simple compliance. Masseria knows that true mastery of leadership is the ability to navigate simultaneous pressures, to act decisively while observing, to empower while controlling, and to maintain order without extinguishing ambition. High-stakes decisions are the crucible in which authority, competence, and loyalty are forged, and today the system has endured. Yet, the world outside remains dynamic. Challenges will return. Alliances will shift. Pressures will rise in ways that cannot always be anticipated. Leadership is not a position, it is a continuous exercise, a perpetual navigation through uncertainty, ambition, and influence. Masseria, prepared, observant, and disciplined, remains at the center of this complex system. The high-stakes environment has proven both the resilience of his structure and the necessity of vigilance. Success is temporary, authority is fragile, and the next pressure, when it comes, will demand the same combination of foresight, precision, and strategic judgment that has carried him through the most critical moments. Trust, Joseph Masseria knows, is the most fragile component of power. Authority can be measured, structure can be enforced, and influence can be guided, but the loyalty of men, the silent agreements that bind them to a leader, can be shattered with a single miscalculated decision. Betrayal, when it emerges, is never announced. It arrives quietly, subtly, and suddenly reveals the true extent of vulnerability in even the most disciplined system. The first signs appear in small, almost inconsequential action. Communications delayed, instructions misunderstood, resource allocations subtly misdirected. At first, these are dismissed as minor errors, the inevitable imperfections of human operation. But patterns emerge, subtle alignments that reveal intention. Someone is acting with purpose, deliberately, and outside Masseria, as framework. He observes. Patience is his weapon. Immediate confrontation would reveal knowledge prematurely, provoke panic, or worse, trigger a chain of mistakes. Instead, he lets the behavior unfold, mapping it, understanding it, waiting for the moment when the betrayal becomes undeniable. Leadership, he knows, requires both restraint and anticipation. The betrayal manifests during a critical operation in network transporting valuable goods, tightly scheduled, heavily guarded, and dependent on precise coordination. Instructions are followed in part, but deviations occur. Timelines slip. Reports are inconsistent. A previously trusted intermediary appears absent at crucial moments. Each inconsistency, minor alone, forms a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Masseria confirms the truth quietly, cross-referencing communications, observing interactions, and monitoring reactions. It is unmistakable. Someone within his network has aligned with external interests, leveraging insider knowledge to manipulate outcomes for personal gain. The sting of betrayal is sharp, not because of the loss itself, but because it is a breach of trust, a deliberate challenge to authority from within. He moves strategically. Public action would endanger operations, reveal vulnerability, and provoke further resistance. Instead, he begins a process of containment. Key resources are redirected, oversight is increased in critical areas, and loyal intermediaries are positioned to monitor and respond. The betrayer is isolated, subtly denied access to critical information, yet unaware that they are being cornered. At the same time, Masseria considers the broader implications. Betrayal rarely occurs in isolation. Allies previously aligned may be complicit, or maybe testing boundaries themselves. Authority must be reinforced not only through correction but also through demonstration. The system must respond decisively, visibly, and in a manner that discourages further disloyalty. The betrayer makes a misstep, perhaps overconfidence, perhaps impatience, whatever the cause. A detail exposes intent. Communications intercepted. Resources mishandled. A coordination failure reveals the deviation. Masseria observes without immediate reaction, allowing the failure to confirm alignment of evidence and identify the scope of influence. The trap is set, the conclusion inevitable. Then comes the decisive move. The betrayer is confronted not with force alone, but with precision. Access to operations is revoked, oversight is reinforced, and the individual's capacity for disruption is neutralized. At the same time, the network is recalibrated, responsibilities are reassigned, communications rerouted, and operational procedures adjusted to prevent recurrence. Authority is restored, control reinforced, and loyalty reasserted. The effect is immediate. Those who observe the betrayal witness consequences. The system demonstrates both clarity and consequence. Loyalty is expected, deviation punished, and authority uncompromised. The hidden alliances, previously empowered and respected, are reminded that autonomy exists only within the boundaries of trust and alignment. Ambition continues to stir, but it now carries the understanding that authority is deliberate, observant, and unyielding when challenged. Masseria reflects on the nature of betrayal. It is never purely personal. It is strategic, calculated, and informed by opportunity. Those who betray do so to advance, to protect, or to manipulate. Leadership must account for these motivations while reinforcing discipline. Authority is not maintained by intimidation alone. It is secured through perception, consequence, and the demonstration of unwavering control. The system, despite the breach, emerges stronger. Procedures are refined, oversight increased, and contingencies strengthened. The betrayal, while disruptive, has clarified loyalty, tested resilience, and demonstrated the capacity for decisive leadership under pressure. Those within the network now understand, more than ever, that competence without loyalty is insufficient, and ambition without alignment carries real risk. Even as the immediate threat is neutralized, Masseria knows vigilance is essential. Betrayal often leaves residual currents, subtle doubts, hidden ambitions, or newly formed alliances seeking opportunity. Each actor must be observed, relationships reassessed, and influence continuously monitored. Leadership is perpetual. Trust must be earned, maintained, and reinforced constantly. The city continues its rhythm, unaware of the internal recalibration, the neutralized threat, or the subtle reinforcement of authority. Operations proceed smoothly, Yet beneath the surface, the network has been refined, loyalty is clarified, hidden currents are mapped, and the consequences of deviation are evident to all who observe. Masseria considers the broader implications of betrayal. Power is not merely the capacity to command, it is the ability to observe, anticipate, and respond decisively. It is the management of human ambition, the orchestration of influence, and the enforcement of consequence. Betrayal tests all of these simultaneously. How one responds defines not only authority but also perception, structure, and long-term control. Through the sting of betrayal, Masseria has reinforced both the system and his position within it. Authority remains unchallenged. Hidden alliances operate within defined perimeters, and the network functions more efficiently, securely, and predictably. The lesson is clear: vigilance, patience, and strategic response transform a moment of disruption into an opportunity for reinforcement. As night falls and operations stabilize, Masseria stands at the center of his network, observing, calculating, and anticipating. The sting of betrayal has left its mark, yet it has also illuminated the strength of structure, the clarity of consequence, and the precision of strategic leadership. Authority, he understands, is not a static possession, it is a dynamic force, tested continuously, and reinforced through decisive action under pressure. The betrayal has ended, but the lesson endures. Vigilance must be perpetual, authority must be demonstrated, and human ambition must be guided with both discipline and foresight. The system is intact, stronger, and more resilient, but the game, as always, continues. Power is not held, it is cultivated, reinforced, and defended. Joseph Masseria understands this with absolute clarity. The sting of betrayal, the pressure of simultaneous crisis, and the subtle currents of hidden alliances have revealed both the vulnerabilities and strengths of his network. Now he must consolidate power, re-establish order, and prepare the system for long-term stability, ensuring that authority is not only maintained but strengthened for the challenges yet to come. The consolidation begins with observation. Every individual, from trusted lieutenants to low-level intermediaries, is evaluated for competence, loyalty, and alignment. Roles are reassessed, responsibilities recalibrated, and access to critical resources restructured. No decision is arbitrary. Every assignment is a strategic move designed to reinforce authority while empowering capable actors within clear boundaries. Hidden alliances, previously tested and subtly integrated, are now formally acknowledged but under controlled terms. Autonomy exists, but only within clearly defined limits. Resources are allocated based on both merit and alignment, ensuring that initiative strengthens the system rather than undermining it. Each participant understands that competence is rewarded, but disloyalty or misalignment carries consequence. Masseria communicates these changes with precision. Instructions are delivered clearly, expectations are explicit, and accountability is reinforced. Transparency is balanced with discretion, ensuring that individuals understand their responsibilities without revealing strategic oversight to potential opportunists. The message is unmistakable. Authority is deliberate. Structure is deliberate, and alignment is mandatory. Operations are streamlined. Previously overlapping or redundant channels are consolidated. Communication protocols clarified, and resource flows optimized. Efficiency is not only a matter of productivity, it is a demonstration of control, a visible reminder that authority is effective, deliberate, and unchallenged. To reinforce loyalty, Masseria employs a combination of reward and recognition. Competent individuals who demonstrated initiative within aligned boundaries receive increased responsibility, enhanced resources, and subtle acknowledgement of their contributions. This reinforces the principle that ambition and competence are valuable when integrated into the system, and that leadership recognizes merit without compromising control. Simultaneously, potential sources of dissent are neutralized not always through punishment, but through realignment. Individuals with ambition that threatens authority are reassigned to positions where oversight is stronger and influence is bounded. Opportunities for independent action that could disrupt the network are carefully limited. Authority is reinforced not only through direct control, but through the design of the system itself, the city. As operations reflect these changes almost immediately, networks that once operated with uneven efficiency now move with precision. Coordination across factions improves. Resources flow predictably. Initiatives, whether generated from central authority or integrated alliances, align seamlessly with overarching objectives. The system demonstrates resilience, adaptability, and clarity, even under pressure. Masseria also focuses on the psychological aspect of consolidation. Authority is as much perception as it is action. He ensures that all communications, interactions, and structural adjustments visibly reinforce his control. Decisions are decisive, instructions are unambiguous, and consequences for deviation are clear yet measured. Confidence radiates through his leadership, reinforcing both loyalty and obedience without overt intimidation. The consolidation extends to strategic alliances outside the immediate network. Partners, intermediaries, and external collaborators are engaged deliberately, with expectations clarified, dependencies established, and influence subtly monitored. Authority is reinforced externally as well as internally, ensuring that no fracture can develop unnoticed. Internal coordination among hidden alliances becomes a tool for further consolidation. Their capabilities, previously tested, are now harnessed systematically to support operational efficiency, maintain oversight, and strengthen central authority. By integrating their initiative while bounding autonomy, Masseria transforms potential threats into instruments of stability. Their success becomes both a demonstration of competence and a reinforcement of the system. Masseria's strategy also includes continuous risk assessment. Potential vulnerabilities, resource dependencies, opportunistic intermediary, and shifting loyalties are mapped, monitored, and mitigated. Contingencies are established, redundant channels are created. Oversight is balanced with autonomy to ensure that no single point of failure can destabilize the network. Throughout this consolidation, ambition is neither crushed nor ignored. Instead, it is guided. Individuals are encouraged to excel, innovate, and expand influence, but always within parameters aligned with authority. By harnessing ambition strategically, Masseria ensures that initiative becomes an asset rather than a liability. The system evolves dynamically, integrating human ambition into structural strength rather than leaving it as an uncontrolled force. The impact is profound. The network, once vulnerable to subtle subversion, overt pressure, hidden alliances, now functions as a cohesive, resilient system. Authority is clear, loyalty is reinforced, efficiency is optimized, and ambition is directed. Individuals understand both opportunity and consequence. Hidden currents of influence now serve the structure rather than threaten it. Masseria reflects on the process. Consolidation of power is not a single act. It is continuous, deliberate, and strategic. It requires observation, insight, and foresight. It demands balance between autonomy and control, recognition and correction, initiative and alignment. Leadership is demonstrated not by assertion alone, but by the orchestration of a network that functions seamlessly under authority while allowing competence and ambition to flourish. As the city moves beneath him, operations hum with predictable efficiency. Hidden alliances contribute productively. Subordinates act with initiative aligned to authority. Ambition is present but constrained, guided by both consequence and opportunity. Authority, once tested and challenged, now stands visible, deliberate, and resilient. Masseria knows that the consolidation is never permanent. Networks evolve, ambition persists, and external pressures emerge unpredictably. Yet the framework he has established, tested under pressure, refined through challenge, and reinforced through strategic oversight, provides stability, resilience, and enduring authority. In the quiet of his office, as night blankets the city, he surveys the system he has forged. Power, he realizes, is never seized once it is cultivated, measured, and maintained. Consolidation is both a process and a principle, requiring continuous attention, disciplined execution, and strategic foresight. The network endures, the alliances are aligned, and authority has been decisively reinforced. Masseria understands that the balance he has achieved between structure and autonomy, ambition and discipline, loyalty and oversight is delicate but deliberate. It is a system designed not only to function efficiently, but to endure, adapt, and assert control under pressure. Consolidation of power is complete, yet vigilance remains constant. Leadership is perpetual, and mastery of the system requires both insight and unwavering resolve. Power, Joseph Masseria knows, is not only about control in the moment, it is about endurance, influence, and the impression left on those who follow. After years of navigating alliances, pressure, betrayal, and ambition, he stands at a point where consolidation meets foresight. The network he has shaped is not merely resilient, it is poised to endure beyond individual actors, beyond immediate crisis, and beyond the limits of ordinary leadership. Now he turns his attention to legacy, securing the system, guiding ambition, and ensuring that authority remains unchallenged for years to come. The process begins with the reinforcement of structure. Every operational channel is reviewed, every resource flow scrutinized, every intermediary assessed for both capability and loyalty. Procedures that were tested under pressure are refined to increase efficiency and predictability. Redundant channels are maintained not as signs of inefficiency but as safeguards against disruption, ensuring that no single point of failure can compromise the system. Masseria also addresses human elements with precision. Ambition is carefully managed. High-performing individuals are identified, rewarded, and subtly integrated into positions that enhance both operational effectiveness and loyalty. Those whose motives remain uncertain are monitored, reassigned, or given responsibilities where oversight is strong but influence is contained. Authority, he ensures, remains visible yet flexible, strong yet measured. Hidden alliances, once subtle and occasionally disruptive, are now integrated fully into the network. Their capabilities are harnessed systematically to strengthen operations, coordinate initiatives, and reinforce the perception of collective power under central authority. Each member understands that their success depends on alignment with Masseria's objectives, and that autonomy is a privilege contingent upon loyalty. The system transforms ambition into a tool of cohesion rather than a potential threat. External partners and collaborators, long maintained through diplomacy and strategic engagement, are now formally secured through contracts, understanding, and clear expectations. Dependence is mutual but controlled. Influence is recognized but bounded, and the network's operations are shielded from interference while remaining adaptable to opportunity. Authority extends beyond internal structure to the perception of dominance within the city, reinforcing Masseria's reputation as both decisive and formidable. Masseria takes special care with succession planning, a subtle yet critical aspect of legacy. He ensures that trusted lieutenants are positioned strategically, capable of maintaining operations and enforcing discipline if circumstances shift. Succession is not a public announcement, but a structural reality designed to prevent chaos, maintain continuity, and preserve authority even in his absence. This planning strengthens loyalty, reduces uncertainty, and embeds stability into the network's future. At the same time, he addresses the final remnants of potential dissent. Individuals whose loyalties were tested during previous betrayals or challenges are carefully realigned. Their influence is bounded, their actions are closely monitored, and their capacity for independent disruption is neutralized without overt confrontation. By controlling these variables quietly and decisively, Masseria ensures that the network operates with cohesion, predictability, and respect for authority. Operations flourish under this reinforced system. Profit flows efficiently. Communication is streamlined. Coordination across previously independent factions is seamless. Hidden alliances contribute positively. Subordinates act with initiative within defined boundaries, and the network exhibits resilience, adaptability, and precision. The city itself remains unaware of the subtle recalibrations that have secured the dominance of this carefully structured power. Masseria also focuses on the psychological architecture of authority. Leadership is not maintained through fear alone, it is reinforced through perception, recognition, and the demonstration of both competence and decisiveness. Instructions are clear, consequences for deviation are measured but unavoidable, and the capacity for strategic initiative is rewarded. Authority is experienced daily, subtly yet definitively, by every participant in the system. He reflects on the nature of influence. Power is not static, it is relational, requiring constant observation, adaptation, and reinforcement. Ambition, competence, and loyalty are dynamic forces that must be integrated into a cohesive framework. Hidden alliances, once a source of uncertainty, are now instruments of resilience. Pressure, once threatening, is now managed predictably. Betrayal, once a test of authority, has become a demonstration of both discipline and foresight. The final phase of legacy building involves solidifying cultural norms within the network. Expectations of loyalty, discipline, and strategic thinking are embedded into daily operations. Procedures are not only functional, they convey values. Competence is celebrated, alignment is rewarded, deviation is controlled, and initiative is framed as a path to recognition rather than disruption. This culture ensures that authority is internalized as much as it is enforced, making the system self-reinforcing over time. Masseria also prepares for external perception. Reputation is a form of authority in itself, influencing both allies and rivals. Through controlled interactions, selective displays of influence, and careful management of public and private operations, he ensures that his dominance is recognized beyond the network. External perception reinforces internal compliance, creating a feedback loop of respect, caution, and strategic alignment. Even as he secures this legacy, Masseria remains aware that leadership is never complete. Threats will arise, ambition will stir, and pressure will continue in unpredictable forms. The strength of his system lies not only in its current stability but in its capacity to adapt, absorb, and respond to challenges without fracturing. He has created a network that is both disciplined and dynamic, capable of enduring the shifting tides of power while remaining firmly under central authority. In the final assessment, Masseria understands the balance he has achieved. Authority is visible yet subtle. Structure is firm yet flexible. Ambition is channeled rather than suppressed. Loyalty is reinforced yet continuously measured. Influence is integrated, consequence is clear, and operations function efficiently under pressure. The network is not merely surviving, it is thriving under deliberate, strategic control. As night blankets the city, Joseph Masseria stands at the apex of his influence. The system he has forged hums with precision, loyalty flows with calculated assurance, and authority is both respected and reinforced. The legacy of power is not a fleeting triumph, but a durable structure, one that will guide, influence, and endure long after the immediate challenges have passed. Leadership, he reflects, is not the act of dominating a moment, it is the orchestration of an enduring system of influence, trust, and strategic action. Authority is maintained not only through strength, but through foresight, discipline, and careful management of ambition. The network he commands is resilient, cohesive, and prepared to meet whatever challenges may emerge. Joseph Masseria's legacy is secured. The city continues its rhythm, largely unaware of the delicate orchestration behind every successful operation. Within the network, order prevails, ambition is guided, and authority is absolute. He has not only survived challenges, pressure, and betrayal, he has transformed them into instruments of consolidation, strength, and enduring influence. And in that endurance, he achieves the ultimate measure of power, not temporary control, but legacy. Authority that is respected, structure that is resilient, loyalty that is assured, and a system that will endure, adapt, and dominate long after his hand is no longer directly visible. The network is complete, and Joseph Masseria stands as its architect, master, and enduring force.